Welcome to the Olive Grove podcast. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really, I think, foundational story. 1 Samuel chapter 3.
Yeah, it's a powerful one, and we're looking at it through the lens of an online study from My Christian Space MCS. They really focus in on this chapter.
Right, the whole narrative of young Samuel, hearing God for the first time. It's quite something.
Absolutely. And MCS frames it around this idea of choosing to hear, that specific wording.
Choosing to hear. I like that. So that's our goal today, to unpack that theme using the scripture and the insights from MCS, and maybe see what it means for you listening right now.
Okay, so before we jump into Samuel hearing the call, we need to set the scene a bit, which MCS helps with.
Good point. What was going on at the time?
Well, the Bible itself, and the study highlights this, says there was a time when Adonai rarely spoke, and visions were few.
Communication breakdown, essentially.
Sort of, yeah. And the MCS study links this scarcity to the corruption of the priests, specifically Eli's sons. Their behavior was causing a problem.
Okay, so it wasn't just quiet, there was a reason why it was quiet.
Exactly. And right in the middle of this, you've got young Samuel, just a boy, ministering under Eli in the tent of meeting.
And Eli himself, the study notes, he's getting old, his eyesight is failing.
Right. Which MCS suggests might not just be physical, it could be perhaps a symbol for a kind of spiritual dimness setting in as well.
Interesting parallel. But then there's that detail about the lamp.
Oh, yes. The lamp of God. The study points out it hadn't gone out yet.
So even with the lack of visions and words, there's still this physical light burning in the holy place.
Precisely. MCS sees it as this visual contrast. A little bit of hope, maybe. It sets a mood, definitely. Like something is about to happen.
Okay, so let's get to the main event. God calls Samuel.
He does. But Samuel, well, he doesn't recognize the voice.
No, he thinks it's Eli, and not just once.
Right, it happens repeatedly. He keeps running back to Eli, you called me, and Eli's like, no, go back to sleep.
And what's interesting, as MCS points out, is that Eli doesn't immediately click either.
No, he doesn't. It takes him a few tries to figure out, hang on, maybe this isn't me. Maybe this is God.
Which raises a fascinating point from the MCS study. They suggest that Samuel, even though he was serving there, in the tent of meeting...
He did not yet know Adonai. That's the phrasing they use.
Yeah. And they interpret this moment as God calling him unto salvation, even within that service context.
It really makes you think about the difference, doesn't it? Between, doing religious things and actually having that personal connection, that knowledge of God.
It does. And MCS doesn't pull any punches here. They draw a parallel to today.
They observe that sometimes, maybe, aspects of modern Christianity can feel a bit like a business, run by managers, perhaps, rather than ministers who are listening for that direct divine input.
It's a challenging thought, that potential disconnect, even now.
Yeah. But then there's a shift. Eli starts to understand.
Right. The third time Samuel comes to him, Eli's discernment finally kicks in. The study really emphasizes this moment for Eli.
Yes. He realizes, okay, this must be Adonai. And then he gives Samuel that crucial instruction.
Speak, Adonai, your servant is listening. Such simple, profound words.
And the MCS study sees this as like a model, a picture of sharing the gospel, teaching someone else how to recognize and respond when God calls. Mentorship.
Okay, so Samuel says the words, and God speaks. What's the message?
Well, it's heavy. The MCS study highlights it's a message of judgment.
Against Eli's own house.
Exactly. Because of his son's wickedness, MCS interprets their actions specifically as blasphemy of God. And critically, because Eli failed to, really rebuke them to stop them.
And the judgment sounds pretty final.
Oh, very. The study notes the line, it will never be atoned for by any sacrifice or offering. That's incredibly severe. It underlines just how serious God viewed the situation.
So why tell Samuel? Why give this incredibly difficult message to a young boy?
That's a great question the study raises. Their thinking is, it was perhaps to prepare Samuel for his role.
His future as a prophet.
Right. And maybe also so that the nation, Israel, would understand why things were about to happen to Eli's family. It shows you the tough side of being a prophet sometimes, delivering news nobody wants to hear.
Which leads right into Samuel's reaction. He's scared.
Understandably, the MCS study points this out. He's afraid to tell Eli what he heard. It's a very human reaction. Prophets aren't usually, thrilled about delivering bad news.
No, I suppose not. But Eli insists. He knows something significant happened.
He does. He pushes Samuel to tell him everything. And then, Eli's response. It's remarkable.
Yeah, the MCS study really focuses on his acceptance. It is Adonai. Let him do what seems good to him.
It's such a contrast to his son's behavior, isn't it? And even his own earlier inaction. Here at the end, there's this submission. Humility, maybe?
A difficult but profound acceptance.
Definitely. And after this, the study traces Samuel's growth. God is clearly with him.
Right, that phrase, he let none of his words fall to the ground, meaning his prophecies came true.
Exactly. They were effective, accurate. And this, MCS emphasizes, is key to his recognition.
People realize he's the real deal, a true prophet.
All across Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, the text says,
Yeah.
fulfilled prophecy built that trust, that authority.
And the communication continues.
Yes, the study concludes by noting that God kept appearing to Samuel there in Shiloh. It signals, really, the start of a new chapter for Israel, with Samuel as God's primary mouthpiece.
Okay, this is a really rich chapter. Let's just pause here for a second. If this exploration of 1 Samuel 3 is sparking something in you, making you think, we really want to encourage you, connect with others who are on a similar path.
Yeah, absolutely. My Christian Space, the source for today's deep dive, actually offers a great community for exactly that, for fellowship, for digging deeper into faith together. It's worth checking out if you're looking for that kind of connection.
And speaking of My Christian Space, it's important to know they are a ministry of Enduring Freedom Ministries, or EFM.
That's right. And EFM has this really significant and, I think, admirable goal right now. They're working to establish a food pantry in Jerusalem, Israel.
Wow, in Jerusalem, that's quite an undertaking.
It really is. The idea is to provide essential, practical support to people in need right there in that incredibly significant city, which, let's face it, often has complex challenges.
Absolutely. Providing food security is such fundamental work.
It is. So if you feel any kind of nudge, any calling to support this specific project, helping bring tangible aid to the community in Jerusalem, you can find out how to donate through the My Christian Space website. Seriously, any generosity can make a real difference there.
Okay, so let's bring it back to 1 Samuel 3 for a moment and kind of wrap up our thoughts from this deep dive.
Right. We've walked through Samuel's first call, that distinction MCS highlights between just, doing religious service and truly knowing God.
The heaviness of the message Samuel had to carry, Eli's failure, but also his final acceptance, and then Samuel's rise as a prophet.
And that central theme from MCS, choosing to hear. How active listening, being attentive to God, is crucial, even perhaps especially when you're already involved in religious life. It's possible to miss the call otherwise.
It really is. That's a powerful takeaway.
I think the story of Samuel, especially viewed through this MCS lens, it just reminds you that God can speak, well, anytime, anywhere, and to anyone. Maybe not in an audible voice like Samuel heard, but in quieter ways.
So the question becomes,
are you truly listening? What are the subtle prompts, the quiet invitations in your life that maybe you're not quite recognizing yet? This whole chapter, this idea of choosing to hear, it's really an invitation for you to consider that.
That's a great thought to end on. How are you choosing to hear? If you found this deep dive valuable, please do subscribe to the Olive Grove podcast on YouTube. We have more discussions like this coming up.
And definitely visit the My Christian Space website. You can often get early access to these deep dives there, plus find their community forums, learn more about Enduring Freedom Ministries, and that Jerusalem Food Pantry project we mentioned. Lots of good stuff.
Thanks for joining us for this exploration of 1 Samuel 3.